I'm gon' ride, we gon' ride, who gon' slide, we gon' slide, they my guys, they my slimes.
Clip up the ride out.
I'm gon' ride, we gon' ride, who gon' slide, we gon' slide, they my guys, they my slimes.
All out when we ride out.
The next topic we're going to discuss on Boxing Bros is clickbait. We've all seen it. You see a title, you see something, and it gets your attention. That's happened to me like all this week with the Lakers. Like it says like they're gonna be talking about the Lakers. Lakers signing someone. I click on it, and the video is not what it's supposed to be about, or it's about something different that happens to be related to the Lakers. So there's Anthony Joshua clickbait out there, and people are, if they're reading the title, going and thinking one thing when it may actually be another thing. And Conspiracy G is going to fill us in on what we're talking about.
Yeah, and so I like to say a special crooked finger salute to Irish Boxing Bro for bringing this to my attention on Twitter. And so the article is actually from worldboxingnews.net. And as you can see, it says, quote, and these are in quotations, I granted Mexico their first heavyweight champ, chubby little Andy Ruiz Jr., right? And so as you scroll down, I'm going to read everything that Anthony Joshua said during this article. This article. So it says, quote, so I was in America at the time. And this little chubby guy, Andy Ruiz Jr., this little chubby Mexican, Andy Ruiz Jr., they say beat me, end quote, said AJ. Quote, they say he beat me, yeah, and I know if I would have given up when I lost as an amateur, I would never be here. So if I let the ridicule and the stick and the bite of banter kind of get to me now, there'll be no future. So you just go to keep on rolling. Keep on rolling. This is my journey at the end of the day, and however I ride, this journey is up to me. The important thing is someone out there is going to take inspiration from your wins and losses. Then it goes, ask what he learned from the Ruiz humbling. Joshua quipped, don't get hit? No, I'm joking. What have I learned? It just sometimes happens. It's just the way the stars align that night. And there are obviously reasons as to why the stars don't go that way. There's a lot of things pulling the forces together. Sooner or later, it will or won't work in your favor. And that night, it didn't. On his future, the Briton added, quote, I pay my dues and continue my journey. Yeah, I crack on with it. Get on with it. There are no negatives with this situation. Like for me, even though I lost to Ruiz, look how many Mexicans I made happy. I granted them the first Mexican heavyweight champion of the world. My suffering made other people happy. I've changed his family's life. So we can look at it from that perspective. And that's all life is about, end quote. And then they end with Andy Ruiz Jr. may not see it the same way. Hopefully they can get the rubber match on when Ruiz is actually in shape to fight.
Can you scroll up again and just read the quote again?
So now, quote, I granted Mexico their first heavyweight champ, chubby little Andy Ruiz Jr., which he never said.
All right, so Conspiracy G, man, you just filled us in on the article. What's your take on the article, the clickbait, and everything?
Well, you know what is funny? I clicked on it because of the title. But however, I was curious about Irish Boxing Bro saying, he didn't say that. But when I seen the title, I was like, wow, AJ said that. When I clicked on it, I was like, come on, man. Like the title implies like he diminished Andy Ruiz, right? But when you read it, he's talking about, hey, looking at his defeat from a positive perspective. And that quote that they're quoting was never in the article at all. So clearly it was just clickbait, and it's unfortunate too, man. Like I feel like any celebrity shouldn't be misquoted at all. And although it's a title, and maybe these writers or they could say, hey, we're using creative freedom just to get people to our site. I get it, but the average person is probably not going to read the entire article anyways. So why do that, right? Because then now you're going to have people believing that Anthony Joshua is diminishing, Andy Ruiz's victory over him at Madison Square Garden, and that's not cool.
All right, Trill Dollar Bill.
I don't even know why anybody would even click on to that, because if y'all know AJ, that's not his style.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? He don't even rock that way. And I'm not even trying to be an AJ fanboy. It's hard, man, because I be trying like not to root for the homie, but he don't even act like that. I'm gonna keep it a buck. Like AJ don't even roll like that. That's what made me like him. You know what I'm saying? Like at first I started off not liking him, but then it was hard not to not like him because he just keeps it 100. He's a stand-up guy. You know what I'm saying? He ain't gonna talk no rubbish about nobody. You know what I'm saying? If he does, it's a little banter about the person that he's fighting, but it's not disrespectful. It's fight banter. He doesn't get into the other stuff, and when he sees a fighter crossing that line, he makes sure to check him. You know what I'm saying? And let him know, hey, it ain't, keep it boxing. So, yeah, definitely, man, AJ don't even rock like that. So, that clickbait is, is whack, and I get caught up in that.
You're not about that life, Brad.
Yeah, basically. You know what I'm saying?
Look, it's very interesting to me because, like, there's a fine line, I think. I think there's fair clickbait and then there's clickbait that's out of bounds, right? In fair clickbait means that you don't paint someone in a negative light. Maybe you have a title that's misleading, but it's misleading based on interpretation, right? Like, I read this title and I thought something. Like, I read this title and I thought you were going to talk about Lakers free agency from 2021. And then I click on it and you're talking about Lakers free agency from years ago or something like that, right? You misled me, but it doesn't paint the Lakers in a negative light. It doesn't paint anyone in a negative light. When you misquote someone or you switch what someone says, there is the potential to paint someone in a negative light. There could be a number of Mexicans that read that quote and feel like, yo, this dude AJ's disrespectful. I don't like him. And they didn't read the entire article. So in their mind, they're relying on you to quote Anthony Joshua correctly. So then they tell other people, and now you have a cycle of people, a group of people who think that Anthony Joshua made this comment when he actually didn't. And so the person who did this article can say, well, he implied it. He said, like, I granted Mexico their first champion, whatever. And then earlier on in the article, he calls him Chubby and Ruiz. But it's like, yeah, he never put it together like that, though. And I've said a lot of words in my life. If you take every word that I ever said and you made a mesh and created a sentence, you can create a sentence that would make me seem very, very bad to people. Right. So the thing is, you don't want to misquote someone. And I think misquoting someone is a very dangerous thing, especially with celebrities, especially with people. So one, if I'm AJ, I look at the people who and maybe even the person who made that quote and wrote that article wasn't actually the person who interviewed him. So, I mean, I don't actually know. But, you just got to be careful. And I would say the person who wrote that article is coming from a position of bias because you got to look at the tone of the way it was written. The guy concludes with maybe Andy Ruiz would disagree. Hopefully we see the rubber match when Andy Ruiz is actually in shape. Right. All those things are favorable towards Andy Ruiz. It tells me that this is someone who's like in Andy Ruiz's corner.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Who wants to see this from Andy Ruiz perspective? So they're already coming at Anthony Joshua. So it's already a bad thing. But you know what, AJ? You need to hit him with the easy E. Don't quote me, boy, because I ain't said. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
that's what it is.
And you brought up an excellent point too. Like, especially in this era of cancel culture, right? Mexico is arguably it's definitely one of the top boxing markets. So if AJ comes out and just violates the first heavyweight champion of Mexico, you know what I mean? They're not going to take that lightly. You know what I mean? That could mess with his ticket sales, pay-per-view sales, a number of things. Any endorsements that he has, so it has major ramifications for misquoting a guy of that stature.
Yeah, most importantly, the Mexican cartel. You don't want to piss them off. They read that. get the wrong impression about AJ, and he goes out there to Mexico. You know, you don't want to do that.
Y'all let us know how y'all feel in the comment section. Please like and subscribe, and check us out on Instagram and Twitter. And also check out our podcast on all major streaming services. You know who we are. It's the Boxing Bros.
You're welcome. You're all welcome.